My name is Emily Carter, and until that fateful morning I thought I understood life. I thought I understood the rhythm of ordinary days, the beauty of small routines, and the meaning of prayer. I was wrong. Everything I knew, everything I thought I knew, was about to be shattered, leaving me with revelations so profound they would change not only my life but the lives of anyone who listened. It was March 15, 2023, a Wednesday like countless others. The sun had not yet risen, and the small town of Asheville, North Carolina, was wrapped in a serene stillness. The world felt hushed, as if holding its breath. I had always loved the quiet of early mornings, the way the light mist curled around the trees, and the faint smell of dew that clung to the air. It was a time when the chaos of life hadn't yet stirred, and everything seemed possible. At 5:30 a.m., I climbed into my car, a well-loved silver sedan that had seen better days. My destination was the early morning prayer service at the local church, a tradition I had attended for nearly 2 decades. It was a small gathering, just a handful of us who would meet in the dimly lit sanctuary to lift our voices in prayer before the day began. It was my sacred ritual, a moment of peace before the demands of work and life came rushing in. The roads were empty as I drove through the sleepy streets of Asheville. The streetlights cast long shadows, their soft glow reflecting on the damp pavement. My favorite playlist hummed softly in the background, a mix of hymns and soft piano melodies that never failed to calm my spirit. As I passed the familiar landmarks, the corner diner, the gas station with its flickering neon sign, the park where my kids used to play, I felt a quiet gratitude for the simplicity of my life. But something felt different that morning. There was a weight in the air, subtle but undeniable, like the faint rumble of a distant storm. I brushed it off as pre-coffee jitters and focused on the road ahead. Just 3 more blocks, and I would be at the church, ready to join my small community of faithful early risers. The intersection came into view. The light was green, and I barely registered the delivery truck barreling toward me from the opposite direction. It was one of those moments that happens faster than thought, where instinct takes over and time seems to both speed up and slow down. I saw a flash of movement from the corner of my eye. The truck wasn't stopping. There was no time to react, no time to swerve or even process what was happening. The sound of metal crashing against metal tore through the stillness like a thunderclap. The impact was instant and unforgiving. Everything went black. In that split second, as my car crumpled like a tin can beneath the weight of the truck, a single thought crossed my mind. Lord, I'm coming home. Before we dive further into this story, I'd love to invite you to join our community. If this story touches your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And here's something special: if you'd like to be mentioned in our next video, comment below with your name and city. Imagine the joy of hearing your name shared with thousands, connecting with others just like you. It's your moment to shine, and we can't wait to celebrate you. The first sensation I became aware of was not pain. It was the absence of everything. A deafening, hollow silence filled my mind, as if the world had been stripped of sound, color, and form. It was an unsettling void, a space where time seemed to dissolve, leaving me suspended in an ungraspable limbo. For a fleeting moment, I wondered if this was death, a cold and empty nothingness where existence simply faded. But then came the sounds. Distant at first, muffled and fragmented, like trying to hear through a thick layer of water. Sirens. The crunch of shattered glass beneath hurried footsteps. They seemed to grow louder, pulling me closer to the surface of consciousness, yet I felt impossibly detached. It was as though I were an observer, floating just above the chaos that surrounded my body. Flashes of memory began to pierce through the haze. The blinding headlights of the delivery truck, the sickening jolt of the impact, the sound of metal bending, screaming under the force of collision. I tried to open my eyes, to move, to speak, but my body refused to respond. A suffocating weight pressed down on me, pinning me to a reality I couldn't yet comprehend. As my awareness sharpened, I became conscious of a curious duality. I could feel the cold pavement beneath my body, the sharp edges of shattered glass against my skin. Yet, at the same time, I felt an inexplicable lightness, as if I were untethered from the confines of physical form. It was a sensation so foreign, so surreal, that my mind struggled to process it. Then it happened. In a single fleeting moment, I felt myself slipping, detaching from the heaviness of my broken body. It wasn't frightening, nor was it painful. Instead, it felt strangely natural, like shedding an old, worn-out garment. I felt a pull, gentle but irresistible, drawing me upward, away from the chaos of the accident scene. The sirens, the shouts, the frantic commotion, all of it began to fade into a faint, distant hum. What replaced it was an overwhelming sense of peace. A warmth began to envelop me, not from the outside, but from within. It spread through me like a quiet, comforting fire, dispelling the fear and confusion that had gripped my heart. In that moment, I realized I was no longer tethered to the world I had known. I had crossed a threshold, stepped through a veil that separated the seen from the unseen. Above me, a soft light began to grow, not harsh or blinding, but radiant and alive. It wasn't merely illumination, it was presence. The light seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't fully describe, as though it were breathing, aware, and deeply inviting. It drew me closer, beckoning with a love so profound it brought tears to my eyes, even though I was no longer sure I had physical eyes to cry with. And then I saw them. At first, they appeared as faint silhouettes, shimmering within the light. But as I approached, their forms became clearer. Beings of pure light, radiant and beautiful, yet utterly unlike anything I had ever imagined. They had no wings, no halos, nothing that aligned with the images of angels I'd seen in art or read about in scripture. Yet, I knew with absolute certainty that they were not of this world. These beings radiated an indescribable love, a love so pure and overwhelming that it felt as though my very soul were being bathed in its warmth. They moved with a grace that defied the limitations of time and space, their presence filling me with a profound sense of belonging. One of them stepped, or perhaps flowed, closer. Though no words were spoken, I felt its thoughts merge with mine, a communication so intimate and complete that it transcended language. I felt a welcome so deep, so unconditional, that it unraveled every fear, every doubt I had ever carried. It was a homecoming not to a place, but to a state of being, a return to something I had forgotten but now recognized as my true essence. In the midst of this overwhelming peace, I became aware of a subtle, unspoken question. It wasn't a demand or an interrogation, but a gentle invitation. "Are you ready?" Ready for what? I didn't know. Yet, before I could even begin to form an answer, the light around me shifted. It began to pulse and ripple, revealing something far greater, far more awe-inspiring than even these beings of light. And that's when I realized I wasn't merely passing through. I was being prepared for something extraordinary, something that would forever alter the way I understood life, prayer, and the very essence of existence. The journey had just begun. As the light enveloped me, I felt the last traces of the world I had known dissolve into the ether. The sensation was unlike anything I had ever experienced. No longer tethered to the rules of the physical, I floated in a state that defied every law of nature I had once understood. There was no time here, no sense of past or future. Only an eternal, unbroken present. The light was alive, a being in itself. It shimmered with colors I had never seen before, hues that seemed to sing as they shifted and danced. Each shade carried its own melody, a symphony of emotions that resonated deep within me. It wasn't just light. It was love, knowledge, and power woven together, an energy that pulsed with the rhythm of something far greater than I could comprehend. I felt myself drawn forward, not through movement but through intention. With each passing moment, the light grew brighter, warmer, more tangible, until it seemed to embrace me entirely. Within it, I became aware of something extraordinary, an overwhelming sense of being fully known. Every thought, every action, every hidden fear and unspoken hope I had ever carried was laid bare, exposed to this divine presence. And yet, instead of judgment, there was only love. It was then that I realized I was not alone. Surrounding me, moving within the light itself, were countless other beings. They didn't speak in words, Yet their presence filled me with a profound understanding. These were not merely guides or guardians. They were witnesses, participants in the vast, interconnected tapestry of existence. Each one carried a unique essence, a singular note in the infinite harmony of creation. One of these beings drew near. It was not a physical approach but a merging of presence, a communion so intimate it felt as though our very souls had intertwined. Through this connection, I understood that this being was here to guide me, to show me what I had not yet seen. Without words, it conveyed a single, undeniable truth. This is only the beginning. In that moment, the light around us shifted again, transforming from a radiant glow to something more structured, more purposeful. I found myself standing, or at least existing, within a space that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. It was neither a room nor a landscape but a boundless expanse, filled with a golden light that hummed with life. And then the visions began. At first they came in flashes, moments from my own life, scenes so vivid and detailed they felt more real than the memories I carried with me. I saw myself as a child, sitting on my grandmother's porch, her weathered hands folded in prayer as she spoke softly to a God she seemed to know so intimately. I saw the day I first walked into a church, the hesitant steps of a girl seeking something she couldn't yet name. And I saw the countless moments of prayer that had punctuated my life, some fervent, others distracted, but all of them woven together into the fabric of my soul. But these visions didn't stop at my own life. They expanded outward, revealing connections I had never known existed. I saw the ripple effects of every choice I had made, every word I had spoken. A kind word to a stranger on a difficult day, a moment of patience when anger might have been easier. These small acts radiated outward, touching lives I had never met and setting off chains of events I could never have imagined. I also saw the darker ripples, the moments when my actions had caused harm or pain. But even these were not shown with judgment. Instead, they were presented with an invitation to understand, to learn, to grow. It was as though the light itself was saying, "This is who you are. Now who will you become?" As these revelations unfolded, the presence of my guide deepened. It wasn't merely showing me these truths, it was helping me to feel them, to absorb them into the very core of my being. And through it all, the light remained, constant and unwavering, a beacon of love and hope that seemed to say, "You are not alone." The final vision of this chapter in my journey was unlike anything I had seen before. The light around me intensified, growing so bright it seemed to dissolve the boundaries of my very existence. Within it I saw something, or rather someone, approaching. It was a presence so vast, so powerful, that it seemed to fill the entire expanse, and yet so personal that it felt as though it were coming for me alone. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew with every fiber of my being that I was about to encounter something, or someone, that would change everything. And so, I waited, suspended in the glow of eternity, as the presence drew nearer. As the radiant presence moved closer, everything around me trembled with anticipation. The light pulsed with an indescribable energy, not as something separate from me, but as if it were awakening something long forgotten within my very soul. There were no words, yet an understanding deeper than language filled the space between us. Then, suddenly I was standing or existing before it. The presence was vast, stretching beyond the limits of sight or thought, yet at the same time, it felt impossibly near, as if it had known me before I had even drawn my first breath. It was not merely light, not merely energy, it was being. It was love. The weight of this presence was overwhelming, yet it did not crush me. Instead, it lifted me, held me in an embrace so pure and powerful that I felt every wound, every doubt, every fear dissolve into nothingness. For the first time in my existence, I was fully seen. And yet, there was no shame, no judgment, only a love so complete, so infinite, that I could barely comprehend it. And then I heard it. Not with my ears, for I had none in this place. Not even as a voice, but as pure knowing, as if the very fabric of my being was absorbing the truth being spoken. "Emily, do you now understand?" I did. But I also didn't. Because in that moment, I saw prayer for what it truly was. Not a duty, not a ritual, not empty words whispered into the void. It was something far more intimate, more powerful. It was connection. I was shown prayers like I had never seen them before. Not just my own, but those of millions across time. I saw the quiet pleas of a mother rocking her sick child in the dark hours of the night. I saw the whispered desperation of a prisoner kneeling on a cold stone floor. I saw hands folded in reverence, fists clenched in anger, voices crying out in agony, in hope, in surrender. And I saw something else. How those prayers moved. They were not static words, not echoes lost to silence. They rippled outward like waves, creating movements unseen by human eyes, shifting realities, touching hearts, transforming destinies. Some prayers shone like beacons, illuminating darkened paths. Others wove together, merging into a chorus that transcended time itself. And then there were prayers that were not spoken at all, but felt, groans too deep for words, the silent cries of a soul reaching out when there were no words left to say. And yet, not a single one went unnoticed. I turned back to the presence before me, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had seen. And in that moment I understood this was why I was here. Not to simply witness, but to carry this truth back. I was being sent back. Part of me wanted to resist, to stay in this place where love was not just felt but was. But the presence, full of knowing, full of love, spoke once more. Go back, my child. Tell them. Let them know that I hear them, that I am near, that no prayer, no whisper, no longing of the heart is ever lost. The light around me shifted, the vastness of eternity pulling away as something else began to take form. A sensation I had long forgotten. Weight, gravity, the slow pull of reality began to return. My journey in the beyond was coming to an end. But my mission was only beginning. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to invite you to be part of something truly special. If this story has touched your heart, if you feel connected to what we are experiencing together, let us know. Leave a comment with your name and city, and in our next video we'll personally send you a special greeting. Imagine hearing your name, being part of this beautiful community, and knowing that thousands of others are sharing in this moment with you. It's our way of celebrating you and this journey we are on together. So, go ahead, drop your name and city below, and don't forget to like this video to help us share this message with even more people. The transition was not immediate. There was a moment of in-betweenness, a space where I existed in both realities. One foot still in the presence of the divine, the other being pulled back into the limitations of the physical world. It was a sensation unlike anything I had ever known, a stretching of the soul between realms. I felt the warmth of the divine light begin to dim, not because it was fading, but because I was being drawn away from it. The boundless love that had surrounded me remained, but it now existed as a memory, an imprint on my very essence rather than an environment around me. I wanted to hold on to it, to cling to the purity of that love, but I was being called back and I could not resist the pull. And then pain. It crashed into me like a tidal wave, violent and unrelenting. The weight of my body returned, the brokenness of it, the sheer agony of re-entering flesh that had been shattered upon impact. My lungs seized as I gasped, sucking in air as if I had never breathed before. Sound roared into my awareness. Sirens, voices shouting. The cold sting of pavement against my skin. I tried to move, but I couldn't. My body felt foreign, unresponsive, a mere shell compared to the limitless existence I had just known. The voices grew clearer. She's breathing. Stay with us. Can you hear me? I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My throat was raw, my mind still tangled between worlds. I could feel hands on me, firm but careful, lifting, stabilizing, moving with urgency. The flashing lights of an ambulance cut through the night, illuminating faces lined with concern. I wasn't supposed to be here. I knew that. I had been there, standing in the presence of something infinite, something eternal. And yet I was back. The paramedics spoke in urgent tones, checking my vitals, securing me onto a stretcher. My head swam as memories of what I had just experienced pressed against the walls of my consciousness, desperate to be understood. I had seen things beyond comprehension, felt truths deeper than words could ever express. And I had been sent back for a reason. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and I felt the vehicle lurch forward, sirens screaming into the early morning air. My body ached with every breath, every jolt of the road beneath us. But beneath the pain, beneath the physical reality of my return, there was something else. A quiet certainty, a whisper in the depths of my soul. You have work to do. And so, I lay there, staring at the ceiling of the ambulance, trying to reconcile the brokenness of my body with the overwhelming sense of purpose burning within me. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew this with absolute clarity. This story wasn't over. It was only beginning. Recovery was a blur, a mix of pain, confusion, and moments of startling clarity. My body bore the evidence of the accident, but my mind was somewhere else, still caught between two worlds. The doctors said it was a miracle I had survived. A head-on collision with a truck at that speed should have left no chance for revival. And yet here I was, alive, breathing, healing. But I knew better than anyone that I had not simply survived. I had been sent back. The days in the hospital felt long, yet time itself seemed irrelevant. My mind was consumed by the reality of what I had seen, the truths that had been etched into my soul. I had been in the presence of something beyond comprehension, something greater than anything words could convey. And I had been given a mission. Tell them. The voice echoed in my heart. It wasn't a suggestion or a request. It was a command. But tell who and how. Lying in that hospital bed, watching the world move on as if nothing had changed, I wrestled with the enormity of it all. Would anyone believe me? Would they dismiss it as a hallucination, a product of trauma? Could I even find the words to describe what I had experienced? Doubt crept in like a shadow, whispering all the reasons why I should stay silent. But every time I closed my eyes, I was back there, standing in that light, hearing that voice, feeling that love. And I knew, this wasn't about me. It never had been. This was about them. The ones who felt alone in their prayers. The ones who whispered into the void, unsure if anyone was listening. The ones who had given up, convinced that God had turned his back on them. He had not. I had seen it. I had felt it. Every cry, every plea, every unspoken longing of the heart. It was heard. It was cherished. Mattered. And now, it was my responsibility to tell them. The weight of that truth settled over me. Heavy yet strangely exhilarating. I was not the same woman who had driven toward church that morning. I had changed in ways I couldn't yet fully comprehend. But one thing was certain. I could not go back to life as it had been before. The world needed to know. I just had to find a way to tell them. If you've made it this far, I want to take a moment to personally invite you to be part of this journey. We don't make any money from these videos. We do it because we believe in the power of these stories, in the truth they carry, and in the community we're building together. If this story has touched you in any way, the best way you can help is by subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. It may seem like a small action, but for us, it makes all the difference. It helps share this message with others who might need it most, and it strengthens the incredible community we're growing here. We do this because we care, because we believe, and because, just like you, we are searching for something greater. So, if you'd like to walk this path with us, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and know that you're not alone. We're in this together. The days turned into weeks, and my body slowly healed, but my soul was forever changed. I couldn't shake the weight of what I had seen, the responsibility I carried. I had been given a message, and now it was time to share it. The world had continued moving as if nothing had happened, but I knew differently. I had glimpsed behind the veil, felt the presence of something greater, and returned with a truth that burned inside me. I could no longer pretend that life was just routine, just a series of days blending into one another. I had been given a second chance, not for my sake, but for theirs. So I spoke. At first, it was just to those closest to me. Family, friends, those who had prayed over my hospital bed without realizing how close I had been to leaving this world behind. Some listened with quiet awe, others with skepticism. But the more I shared, the more I saw how deeply people longed for this truth. The truth that God is not distant. The truth that no prayer is wasted. The truth that He hears, even when we feel unheard. I saw the way eyes lit up, the way hearts softened when they realized that their cries had reached heaven, that their pain had been seen, that their faith mattered. And that was just the beginning, because this message was not just for a few. It was for everyone. As the weeks passed, I found myself stepping into something I never could have imagined before the accident. My life had taken a turn I never expected, but one that felt more real, more right, than anything I had ever known. I wasn't just living, I was walking in purpose. I was no longer afraid. 'Cause now I knew. God is near. He always has been. And for those who are willing to listen, for those who have ever doubted, for those who need to be reminded of how deeply they are loved, I am here to tell you. He hears you. He loves you. And He is calling you back. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. There is something more waiting for you, something that could change everything. All you have to do is click on the next video appearing on your screen. It holds something powerful, something that might be exactly what you need to hear right now. Before you go, if this message touched your heart, take a second to like this video and comment below. Let this be a declaration of faith, a way to say yes to the blessings that are waiting for you. You are not here by accident. You are part of something greater. Click the next video now. Your journey continues.